This is all going to be all about car travel and hotel travel. So Amber, why don't you go ahead and start by introducing yourself while we let the other speakers in?
Sure. Hi, I'm Amber. My Instagram and Facebook, which is where I'm most active, are both Eat, Drink, Cat, because those are my favorite things, not necessarily in that order. This is, my number one sleepy gal, Harley. Say hi, Harley. Yeah, she's super excited. So she's been with me for 8 years, and I've been traveling with her that whole time. It was never my intent to travel with cats. It was sort of one of those things where we both got, I say she's really codependent on me, but really we're super codependent on each other. So it just kind of started that I went on one trip without her and I didn't have any fun. And I said, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to take her with everywhere I go. So we started finding cat-friendly hotels. All the Kimpton hotels are super amazing. And yeah, she goes with everywhere. And now she has a sister, Lola. And we also have a bunny that thinks he's a cat that goes everywhere with us too. So we extensively use the backpacks right there. The harness, especially the stray one, is really good for Lola because she's very long and skinny and slippery. And that one's really like tight. And then the cat condo, like the travel cat stuff, has been like life-changing for us for traveling because it's actually meant for traveling. So, which is hard to find.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I was going to say, I think one of my new favorite pictures is your bunny in the cateau with one of your cats.
Yeah, I think one was on top and one was in the bottom. I think that they all three, and they're Lola and the bunny are best cuddly buddies, and Harley's on the top because she's the alpha. So
amazing. Well, and also before we get to introduce Alex and Zafrina, everybody who's here, we have over 100 people in the room. Please introduce yourselves in the chat. Share with us where you're tuning in from, how many cats you have. If you have an Instagram, personal, or with your cats, share that in the link as well so we can all connect with each other. And there is a Q&A box for questions at the end. So Alex, we'd love for you to introduce yourself and just share a little bit about the traveling that you've done with your cats.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Amber. This is Ollie, and we have a sister Rosie as well. And we've flown. We've done some car trips, hotels, Airbnbs, vacation rentals, all that. And we started because he wanted to go outside, and we noticed that. And his sister also, she's a little chiller. She's just down for whatever, so we take her along. But we've taken him pretty much everywhere. Like if we go to the hardware store or something like that, Home Depot, will take him with us. From kittenhood, we just always took him everywhere in the car, and that's kind of how he got used to car travel. And then that evolved into airplane travel and such as well.
That's always one of the things I tell people is like, we just take our cats like everywhere. Like they go out bar hopping with us and stuff, and they like love it. And then like when we go on a trip, it's the same thing. Like it's not a new scary thing. So
yeah.
Great. All right, Zafrina, why don't you give a little intro of the travel that you've done with your cats as well?
Hello, everybody. I'm Zafrina. I'm the cat mama for Kitty Mojito, who is 11, and Lynx, who is almost 16. Our travels are mainly in our car. We've done some ferry traveling, and just mainly in our little Honda Civic. We just take them pretty much everywhere we go. So they're quite used to it, even though they're older now. Yeah, so that's us.
Great. All right, so let's start with our prep tips for cat travel. And also just to share my background on what type of travels we do. So my husband, who's Travel Cat co-founder, and my two cats, Andy, who's right now sleeping in the Meowable home, and Wilfie, most of the types of traveling we do is car travel. So the biggest thing we've done is a 7-state road trip over 3 weeks to 5 different hotels and Airbnbs, many, many miles. And so that was the biggest trip we had to prepare for. So one of my practical tips is to pack the car the night before you have to get the cats in, so that all you have to do to get the cats in is just get them into the carriers, and you know exactly where those carriers are going. And so that it's less stressful for you. And also our cats, they sleep in the carriers all the time, whether it's the transporter or the navigator or the boot coop. But to be honest, they still don't love getting into the carriers. So we also do sort of prep when we know we have to get them into the carriers, which is close the bedroom doors and block off areas that they can hide under that is hard to get them out of. So that way there's like nowhere for them to run. Zafrina, what about you? What are some of your prep tips for like getting ready for a car ride?
Our biggest tip would be, my biggest tip for myself is I had to switch from the travel litter box to a full-size litter box. It's really important that you know your cat and what type of a traveler they are. We have kind of two spectrums. Lynxie is a really chill, he'll just sleep anywhere type of cat, whereas Kitty Mojito is very anxious. So it takes a little bit of extra prep to get her kind of going and not hide under the couch or under the bed or anything like that. So we do pack the car the night before, everything we need. They have their own little bag with all their supplies, food and, dishes and things that they used at home. So the other biggest tip I would give anybody is to take a travel vacuum with you, because it is so easy to clean up all the litter in the car or even in your hotel room, because obviously you want to be good guests. So those would be my biggest tips.
Oh, I love that. And actually just switching the question so we can get to as many as possible. So Alex, what are some of your tips for keeping your cats calm in the car? Like, are you sitting with them? Do you like, I believe you travel with a partner, right? So like, do one of you in the back with the cats? Like what's the sort of like the setup and how do you keep your cats calm?
So the most important thing for us was to get them used to the bags, first of all, backpacks. And then also we do travel with strollers. So we're really looking forward to the Travel Cat stroller as well. Get them used to like their like safety blanket type of materials, and make sure those are in the car with them, and give them like a space. So Ollie likes to sit right next to me while I drive. Maybe not the best thing, but that's his spot, like right next to me. And then Rosie has a spot right in the back seat, and they like to stay in those spots. So make sure not to like occupy those spaces so that they can have their safe spots in the car.
Great. And Amber, what about you? You have 3 animals that you're traveling with. So where are they situated?
Okay,
How do you keep them calm?
So Harley she rides on the passenger seat. And if there's a passenger in the seat, then she's riding on their lap. And if she doesn't particularly like the person, she will just be rude to them the whole time, but she'll still ride on their lap. She'll just like look at them and like give them faces and stuff because it's her seat, obviously. So she rides actually in a little like box thing, like a little mesh bucket. And that's her favorite place to ride. And then she wears her harness. Lola rides in the back. We do the Travel Cat backpack, and I put a couple links in the chat, but she always rides in it the same way. She'll like hang her arms over. So she's hanging out the top and it looks ridiculous, and look out the window and stuff. If you, I'll put the link in Slack and in the chat, and it's the first photo is how she travels. And then eventually she gets tired and she just sleeps down in it. And then the bunny, because he's wily, he thinks he's a cat, but he's not. So he's in a closed carrier, but he has to be where he can see Lola because she's the love of his life and they have to be together. So he thinks so. She loves him, but not the
same. and practical tip as well is talk to your vet about the travels that you're doing. So we actually got prescribed from our vet Dramamine for both of our cats. So an hour before we're about to take them out, we give them a little syringe of like 0.5 millimeter or whatever it is, mLs of Dramamine. And that helps them stay calm and not throw up in the car. And we also find that even though it's very hard sometimes, try our best to stay calm because cats can pick up on like tension and nervousness. And my next question is, all of you have done multiple trips, right? So I'm curious, what has been something you've changed or adjusted with how you travel with them, like your setup, the logistics? So just for example, for us, when we did that really long car trip, my husband was driving in the front, and the passenger seat in the front, we had a bunch of like suitcases and stuff. And then in the back, I had both cats. So I was basically rotating, letting one of them out at a time because they tolerate each other, but they're not like bonded kittens or anything like that. So I would not let them both out at the same time. That would be madness. So I would let one out and make sure while the other one's zipped up. So kind of rotate them in the carriers and the boot coop. And what I realized on a different trip is I thought, Andy is so chill in the bag. Like she doesn't make any noise. She doesn't meow at all. Let me just put Andy in the front seat next to Ian and leave her there, see how that goes. And then Wilfie, who like never wants to be zipped up in anything. He always wants to be out. Then I can just be in the back with Wilfie. And I think Andy can handle 2-hour trips in her bag up front by herself. And I was correct. So I'm like, oh my God, now this is so much easier. I'm only dealing with one cat in the back. So curious if you could each share like something like that, where you just realize, wow, this is a change that I made based on paying attention to behavior. Zafrina, you want to go first?
Sure. The thing we changed first is getting a full-size litter box, because one thing we learned, especially traveling with Kitty Mojito, is because she's anxious, she tends to do the trifecta. She'll pee, she'll poo, and then she'll throw up, all kind of at the same, one after the other. So having that litter box from home, she felt much better. She was able to go in, use it when she needs to, and then she'll come out and just, sit around. Neither of them like to be zipped up in a carrier. I know it's not like something you're encouraged to do, just letting them free roam, but we had to take in our little, like the mobile home that you guys carry. We have 2 of them, similar ones, one in the back seat and one kind of at the back, kind of on the floor. So Lynxie will go in and cuddle up. He'll sleep for hours. The longest road trip we did last summer was 2 weeks, 8 different hotels. I don't know how many miles, but it was a lot. But those are some of the things we did change, because then they were more comfortable and they felt much better, as opposed to just, whatever we had before. It didn't work.
Yeah. Okay, Alex, what changes have you made?
So the biggest change we made was that, like, listening to our cats. So Ollie has this habit, if he gets a little ticked off at us, he will pee in protest. So at first we were like, it's really safe. We have to keep them in the backpack, and we do keep them in the backpack mostly, but sometimes he'll get a little, once he starts running his mouth, we know that he's about to pee in protest. So we listen to the cats. If they need to be let out and just walk around the car for a little bit, we let them out. In the plane as well. If they want to pop their head out for a second with their harness on, we let them pop their head out before we put them back in. But yeah, just listening to our cats, because cats, they do always tell you what they want, right? So listen to the cats.
Good. Amber, how about you? What are some changes you've made?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is just our cats do much better if we just keep them on their schedule. So they're really cool. They're really chill. They're good with traveling. But we noticed that when we would sometimes like leave super early to get ahead of traffic or whatever, that's when they get really disrupted and agitated. And the best advice I always tell people is like, if you're doing cross country and you don't have a choice, it's a totally different story. But like most of our road trips are a couple hours. And as long as we can keep them on their regular schedule, so like they're super reliable. Harley used to come to the office with me when I went to work. Like as long as she goes to the bathroom in the morning, she's good for 8 hours. Same with Lola. So we let them eat their normal eat. We watch, make sure they go to the bathroom, and then we know they're good to travel and they're not going to be stressed out. And same thing at night. Like we try to make sure that they get to eat around 6 o'clock every night. Because they really like the routine of it, and that way they still feel safe and like they know what's happening. Like they know when we get in somewhere, we go out and we're someplace else, but they still have their same food bowls from home, and we always bring their favorite, like the Cateau or whatever is like a favorite thing, and it's like, so they get there and they still have like their stuff. And I think because they know that it's going to be all right, they know the routine, and like our cats they travel everywhere and they're really chill about it. Like we don't have to give them anything. They just are like, okay, when we get there, it'll be cool. And I think because we stick to their routine, it really helps. So.
Yeah. And so, something we do is I'll run into whatever hotel room we're going to bring them into before we let the cats in, and I'll set everything up. So I'll lay down the scratchers, I'll lay down a blanket from home that has their scent all over it. I lay down like all the travel cat products, the bags, putting everything out, the litter box. So everything is out and ready to go, like once they get in. I know people are asking, I have one question about, how you deal with potty, going to bathroom breaks and that sort of thing. Some of you guys have already talked about it, but it seems like the most common thing is, the great thing about cats is they eat and then they poop and they eat and they go to the bathroom. So I think what Amber said, right, is think about your cat's feeding schedule. And more often than not, from all the panels and, people that we've had at our events, most of them say that, they don't need to like stop to have their cats go to the bathroom. I know on our first trip, we had the litter box in a spot it could be used, but our cat was just using it to like sit in there and kind of hide and not like go to the bathroom in there. I don't know, Alex or Zafrina, if your cat, I mean, I know you've talked about accidents, but like, do you set it up so your cats can go to the bathroom during trips, or do you just, set it up so they go as soon as they get where you land?
So I just like Sabrina, I have the full size litter box, and it's available to be used during car trips. And we've had that case where Ollie likes to sit in the litter box because I think it's a comforting thing for him. It's like familiar. But then it was like a godsend when he finally used the litter box while we were driving. It's like, oh, finally we can take longer trips. And getting that out of the way, and now he just uses the litter box in the car. Huge help.
Yeah,
it's the same with us too, because once you have the litter box there, even before we like moved out of the parking lot, they would just go use the litter box because it's there, and then as we're driving down the road, they would just keep using it, and then it kind of helps them feel, I don't know, safe, and they know they don't have to like hold it. And if accidents happen, we're prepared in case an accident does happen. But I think just having that accessibility, it really helps ease their anxiety for sure.
Yeah, probably a good idea to start with having the litter box in your car and open available for if it's your first trip and it's a longer trip, but especially if it's a shorter trip, like a couple of hours, that kind of thing. Just think about, again, know your cat, right? How often does your cat go to the bathroom usually? Do they ever go to the bathroom randomly if you haven't just fed them, so just think about that. But yeah, and then just learn, right? Like, so Amber and our cats don't really go in the car. Alex and Zafrina, they do. So, this is a good example of you just have to get to know your cat and try things.
And I even tried traveling with a litter box initially and they wouldn't use it. But I think it depends on the cat and it depends on so many things. Yeah. So like all these things depend on your cat,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of acts, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just saying, I did a thing like every time we entered the car, I would place them in the litter box, show them where it is, and assure them that they can use it, just to get them used to it.
Yep. So speaking of accidents, obviously taking out your cats to new places is not always roses and daisies and everything goes perfectly well. So would love if everyone could share a stressful situation that they had to deal with and how they got through it. And I will start. Probably for us, the most stressful situation was when we did not time the medicine in advance. So somebody also asked a question of what do I do with a car sick cat, beyond medication of Dramamine, which funny enough, Dramamine is prescribed to pets. It's literally the same Dramamine that humans take in a different dosage. That's what's really helped our cats. And there was one trip where one of our cats, we weren't able to give it to her. It's you have to be strategic to give it to her, and we couldn't do it before the trip. And she did end up throwing up during that trip, and not even that, but she's the cat that was usually so chill, never tried to get out of the bag. And she just was trying to get out of the bag for most of the trip. And then that was like stressing our other cat out. So it was kind of like, wasn't necessarily anything we could do about it besides try to get home as quickly as possible and just really realize that, okay, we have to make sure that never happens again, because it was not great. What about you, Amber?
I mean, I guess I've never had I'm like a huge like planner and prepper. Like my day job is director of operations at a tech company. So my superpower is thinking of everything that can go wrong. But one of the things that I do always do is I carry, we have a pretty big travel kit that we carry with. And we have like, I have like heavy duty like tape, like gaffer's tape and stuff, because sometimes you have to go to the hotel room and pretend you're a cat, right? So you have to crawl around on the floor and look around. And like recently I went into a hotel room and it had been remodeled and there were big cutouts like under the sink that basically went straight into the wall. And while Harley's kind of a chunk and doesn't really do stuff, Lola will find any little hole. So I had to like crawl under and find like big enough stuff to block off and tape. And then I basically kept her out of that room anyway. But that was kind of like, had I not done that, it could have been a really bad situation. So you just have to think differently when you travel with pets. Like you have to be looking out for them and all the, crazy things that cats like to do. So.
What about you, Alex?
Yeah, so one of the biggest issues that we've had with both of our cats is that when they're not comfortable, they won't eat and they won't use the restroom for maybe a day or two, and that can be pretty bad for a cat, right? So what I've noticed is that a lot of pet-friendly hotels, they can check for you if there's been a dog in the room recently or if there's been some hiatus. So try to get a room that hasn't had a dog or another cat in it recently, because that can make your cats really uncomfortable. They've gone like 2 days without eating before because they were just like, oh, it smells like dog everywhere. I don't like this place. So be careful about that and try to check.
Great. Safrina?
The biggest issue we had was last summer on our 2-week road trip. Lynxie got into the box spring of a mattress and he hid between the coils of the mattress. So even though we checked the room and made sure everything was secure, somehow he found a tiny little rip and he crawled in there and we couldn't find him for the life of us. We were freaking out. He didn't even make a noise. And somehow my husband, kind of sixth sense, he just looked in there and he saw a little rip and there he was sitting in there. So sometimes even though you plan and you prep as you do the best you can, there are situations where you kind of have to think on your feet. And our only goal was getting him out of there, and he did not want to come out. He was comfortable in there, he was just chilling. But we just somehow dragged him out. So that was the most stressful we've ever been.
Emily, I know you mentioned air tags earlier, like because we only travel like cities and urban places. My cats both have air tags on their collars. And the best thing ever is that you can play a noise so you can find them. So like Lola gets into everything. It doesn't matter how good I check. And she got up behind the headboard of a bed the other day and I was freaking out. We're in a 2-bedroom suite. There were so many places to hide. I was like, I have no idea. And I just played the beep and I was like, wait, what? Where are you? And like started moving pillows and moved everything. And she's like, hi.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Yeah, I didn't realize that it makes the beep noises well, and I deal with that.
Which is great. So like, but only like you said, if you're in an urban area where there's lots of, but we mostly go to like LA and stuff. Yeah.
So we're going to do a few minutes over before we switch to our next session at 2:30. So we've actually answered most of the questions that are in the Q&A. So now is your chance. If you have any other questions, throw it in the Q&A box so that we can get to any more questions that people have. And I'm just looking through. So we did have a question, if one person wants to answer this, how do you go inside somewhere where cats are not allowed? My quick comment on that is one tip is to not assume that every hotel, even if it's in the same chain, accepts cats, because we made that mistake where we had seen that a Hyatt, we go to Hyatts a lot, and a lot of Hyatts are pet friendly. So we just assumed they all were. And then when we called ahead to one, we were trying to be tricky about it and say like pet, but they kept saying like dogs only, no cats. So always check, even if it's a chain, that chain definitely accepts it. But does anyone have an actual story of sneaking their cats in somewhere successessly? Amber, go ahead.
Yeah, none of the strip hotels in LA or in Las Vegas allow cats. So so I've snuck Harley many times. I wouldn't do it with 2 cats and a bunny now, but with one cat, like She's super quiet. So went to the Flamingo, checked in. Like all the casinos, you have to walk through the whole casino floor, right? You don't just go to the hotel. So we're checking in, and I had my husband check us in, and we did do a pet friendly room, but they only allow dogs. So I was like, oh yeah, our dog will be here later. And then like I went out and Harley was in my purse, and like through the whole casino floor, she didn't make a peep. And then we got in the elevator. There's one other guy with us, and he was super drunk. And Harley pops out, goes, meow, and the guy goes, oh my God, a cat. And I was like, camera. She goes, yeah. So
well, there are a few more questions, so I just want to get to them. We're getting kind of a few similar questions about, how do I get my cat used to it? So, used to being in the car. So if any of you can just think back to like the very beginning, like before you went for, a 2-hour, 5-hour car trip, was there anything else that you did to get them used to it beforehand? Zafrina, do you have anything? Yeah.
Yes. The first thing we did is just letting them explore the car when the car's not moving. So let them like get comfortable and then just look around and, poke around, and so that when they're comfortable, it's just really short rides, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes max, just getting them used to the sounds and the brakes and all those things. That really helped, especially with Kitty. Even after all these years, she still gets anxious every time we take her out. So that first maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes, she's super anxious. She'll meow, and, she has a little routine. She likes to sit in the middle, and she likes to put a paw on her dad, kind of like a safety blanket. So she'll hold him the whole time we're down the road, going down the road. So just take your time. Don't just put your cat in the car and just drive off, because then that's a terrible experience for them, and they'll never really want to get into the car again.
All right. Well, thank you so much. These have been moving so quickly. I know. If you guys all want to share your Instagram in the chat one more time. The amazing thing about these events is that our speakers especially, but you could see the other people in the rooms here, they want to connect. And so we encourage you to stay connected with all of our speakers.